morning. It's time for your old lady podcast. It's Mama Snark behind the scenes. Welcome. Today, I've got two very silly stories for you. I'm going to talk about the books I finished this week, the knitting I did, some new yarn I got, and I want to go over some of my favorite books from 2024 because I read 12 incredible books. Well, I read more than that, but these were my 12 favorites. So stay tuned and we'll talk about those things. So the first story involves a Volvo car key. I drive a 2011 Volvo XC60, the smaller of the SUVs. I inherited this from my sister. So it is a 14-year-old car with 80,000 miles on it. So we're going to drive it for a while. But my electronic key was not working. I couldn't get the doors to open. I couldn't get the ignition to start. I was really in a kerfuffle and it seemed to be getting worse. So I called around and I talked to various mechanics and key people, and they're all like, no, you got to go to the Volvo dealership. Well, surprisingly, in Southern California, there are only 3 Volvo dealerships, and they're all about 45 minutes away from me. So last Friday, I girded up my loins and I got in the car to go buy my new key, which incidentally, they had quoted at being $1,100. Super fun. So I get there, I walk in, very nice man is sitting there, and I told him my name. I said, I have an appointment. He goes, what are you here for? I said, I'm here to get my Volvo key placed. And he said, have you changed the batteries? And I'm like, duh. I have spent half my life savings on car batteries for this because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so he opens it up and he looks at it and he pops the batteries out and he goes, oh, I see the problem. There's a piece of paper, which I'm going to show right here, that has been inside my key for as long as I've driven this car. Somehow, neither I, nor my sister, nor my son-in-law, nor my daughter, who have all replaced the batteries in this key, none of them realized that that piece of paper was supposed to go between the batteries, not underneath them. If you'll notice, there's a diagram saying exactly that. So there I was with my now functioning, not $1,100 car key. And I just want to say that I laughed all the way home. Now, my sister has since passed. She's been gone about 6 years now. I could hear her laughing at me. I could absolutely hear her saying, oh, Leanne. Anyway, that's my first good story. The second one involves this. Now, I had a biopsy last Thursday. I was born and raised in Southern California before we even cared what sunscreen was. So it's a wonder I haven't, had a million biopsies on my face at this point. So I went in Thursday to the dermatologist, and it was a busy day at the dermatologist. The waiting room was full of all kinds of people, and I had to wait quite a while for my appointment. But I brought my knitting, so I was happy. I was just sitting there doing my thing. And I kind of look up, and a woman comes in, and she had just exited the back office and gone out as if she were going home. And not 3 minutes later, she comes in, and she's so loud. She's like, oh my God, there is blood shooting out of my toe. It is filling my shoe. And everyone in the waiting room is like, where's the blood? Where's the blood? There was no blood. But she was fun. When I went back and I asked the nurse about it, she goes, yeah, you'd be surprised how many people do things like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, we'll have the results on this in about 3 weeks. I will return and report about that. And fun story. Last Thursday, I filmed the Snarkcast with David. And I had a Band-Aid right here. And one of the women commented, she goes, what is on your face? I kept trying to wipe it off my phone. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that because it's a Band-Aid. So let's talk about the knitting for this week. I had a good knitting week. And can I just say that knowing that I have to talk to you guys on Tuesdays really inspires me? First of all, I finished this pair. Look at this. Isn't this fantastic? The name of this yarn is Water Nymph. That's the colorway. Isn't that beautiful? Anyway, this got all kinds of cables and stuff. See how the cuffs are different? I love this. I finished these last night in the nick of time. They've been blocked, and I'll take them off the sock blockers in a minute. I had a really interesting, I follow on social media all the knitting forums because knitting forums are safe places to be these days. A picture went by last night, which I'll display right up here, and I kind of did a double take. Wait, those aren't my socks. Someone had knitted almost exactly the same sock as I did, and so that's fun. Let me show you what's on the needles right now. This is a pattern that I tried at least 3 times last year, and somehow I could not wrap my brain around it. And now that I've done it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so fun to knit. This is another Summer Lee pattern. It's called Mermaid Avenue. And the colorway is from Hedgehog Fibers, and this is called Fly. And I love it. So that's what's on my needles right now. But I got squishy mail. Squishy mail in the yarn community means you got yarn in the mail. So I have this one, which is peachier than I had anticipated. And if you compare it to this one, you can see that this one is a little more peach than this one. I guess I'm in spring sock season and I need to have pink socks. Not sure what I'm going to do with these. Probably one of these will be the Mermaid Avenue pattern again, because that's fun to knit and it looks really cool in this kind of yarn. This kind of yarn meaning speckled and variegated, as opposed to tonal, which is all one color. I also signed up for a Yarn of the Month club. Never done that before, and I may not keep doing it because it's kind of expensive, but it was fun to get a package yesterday and go, I don't remember ordering this. So this, let me tell you the name of the club. It's Annie's. It's Annie's. This is called Simply Sweet. It's fantastic. I'm not buying any more yarn, except if it accidentally comes in the mail for a monthly subscription. I finished 2 books this week, and both of them were incredible. I finished Water Moon, which is a new fantasy light novel, I would call it. Cozy fantasy, if that's even a genre. Beautiful book set in Japan in an alternate universe. It was just so lovely. I hope you really enjoy it. The other book I finished last night, as I was finishing my socks, was a book called More or Less Maddy. And this is a book about a young woman who is initially diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And it is a journey into her first year of this diagnosis. I've known a lot of bipolar people in my life, and this book totally nails what it's like. Snark puppy decided to start barking right now. Doodle, quit! I just let the dog out, and now I have to let her back in. That was a rather bipolar explanation of the book, because I had to jump up and deal with the dog. Great book. I highly recommend it. Apparently, Lisa Genova is some kind of psychotherapist, psycho brain person. She understands these things. And every one of her novels is about some condition that it's not something that people write about. Let's put it that way. So I will definitely be looking at more of her novels. What am I reading right now? I'm reading The Lost Bookshop. It is one of those cozy books about books and bookshops, which readers like to read. This place takes place in Ireland. Dual time thing. It's cute. I don't love it yet, but it's cute. I will likely start this afternoon A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. I read her previous book last year. It's called The Unmaking of June Farrow. Is that it? I don't remember. Anyway, those are the books I'm reading this week. We'll see how those go. I had some problem this week when I finished Water Moon. I could not find the next book. I'm always got at least 2, mostly 3. I usually have 2 fiction and 1 nonfiction going at a time. My nonfiction is about stress release, which I talked about in the previous video. But I really struggled the other day. I probably started 4 books. You know how you can on Audible, you can play a sample, and it was like, nope. There's a new book out right now called The Favorites. It's about an ice dance couple, and I love ice skating. I spent the greater part of my 20s and 30s obsessed with ice skating. This book, I started it, and It's supposedly a retelling of Wuthering Heights. There's a lot of abuse in it. And I just was like, yeah, I can't do this. Thank you. Nope. So I want to talk about some of my favorite. I had 12 books last year that I said these were my favorite of the year. And I'm not going to do all 12. Good grief. Life's too short. I will do the first 4. First one is The Lost Story by Meg Shaffer. Wow. This was my second book that I've read by her. She has a third one coming out at the end of this year, I believe. She is a wonderful writer that I would call the realm of magical realism. Her first book, which I can't remember the name of, but I'll put up here, was very Narnia-esque. Well, this one too was also fairly Narnia-esque, but with contemporary adults. I loved this book, The Lost Story. I loved her previous book. Highly recommend. Historical fiction, The Lion Women of Tehran. Wow. What an important novel for us to be reading today. This book goes through when Iran switched to their religious nationalism. And it's such a caution for us today as our country is looking more like a Christian nationalist nation. This book is very important. Of course, it's very female-centric and very educational and very important, I feel. The next book in my list of wonderful books that I read in 2024 is The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. Kate Quinn is a wonderful historical fiction novelist. I've read several of her books. They are all fantastic. The Briar Club is set in the 1950s in Washington, D.C., around the time of McCarthy. And it's a story about a boarding house where women live together. They're women from many different walks of life and how their stories intersect. And it's quite a lovely novel, while also being very interestingly historical. Cold War, McCarthy. Good stuff. Another historical novel. This was probably one of the biggest books of last year, and this is one of the reasons I loved it. It's The Women by Kristin Hannah. This book is about the female nurses in Vietnam. Think China Beach. Think the horrors of Vietnam from the viewpoint of a female nurse as she is deployed over there. And it's powerful. Not everyone loved it, and you may not, but I really enjoyed it. It was a book that sucked me in from the beginning and really held my interest. So that's the first 4. We still have another 8. We'll do that next week. I wanted to talk about the deep thought this week. And there is so much cruelty going on out there in the world. Cruelty's been given permission, let's just say that. And as things go on and we're bombarded with more and more things that just feel so desperately wrong, please remember, we need to take care of ourselves, but we can't put our heads in the sand. So my saying for that is head down, heart open. Which means basically I kind of want to be abreast of what's going on, but I don't want a 24/7 drip. And I need to hold on to myself. I need to know when enough is enough. I need to know when not to read something, not to listen to something, not even to talk about something. And I think that's a good practice. That doesn't mean we're putting our head in the sand and we're not looking at what's going on. And I wanted to end with that this week. Please be very, very gentle with yourself. Manage the information that's coming in. I really thank you for listening. This is really old lady stuff, and I don't even know if it means anything to anyone, but I figure me being me and not worrying about dressing up, I did shower. It kind of gives everybody permission to be themselves, which is kind of my MO. Be yourself. So from one old lady to perhaps others, and some old men as well, I bid you adieu. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week.